theme. The grid is the master constraint. I keep coming back to this, or basically we do. We have 170 gigawatts under study, 0.62 gigawatts connected, and until the grid connection queues processes meaningfully faster, every other piece of the puzzle from like LTDA contracts, EPC capacity, battery supply chains, it's secondary, right? METI is tightening requirements in the right direction, I honestly believe. Mandatory proof of the land rights, higher financial deposits, but the TSOs are overwhelmed. We talked about this last time as
Yep.
well. But the single investment I would make in Japan's energy infrastructure right now, if I could, I can't, but let's go with it, would not be a specific technology. It would be in the TSO's processing capacity and grid infrastructure. Everything flows from there. I truly believe this.
Sure, sure. No, I mean, with all of these power generation projects coming online, or the LTDA rounds itself has accelerated the grid connection queue problem as well. Winning an LTDA agreement, winning an LTDA contract requires proving you've applied
Yeah.
for grid connection. So the auction itself creates demand for grid connection applications, uh, exactly the moment when the system is already overwhelmed
Yeah.
with all these processes.
I think we're getting started already. We keep doing this, so I guess this will be the intro.
All right.
All right, let's do it.
Let's dive in.
All right.
Before the Golden Week holidays, we were waiting for it. We thought it would come out on Thursday. It didn't. Friday, it didn't. And then after Golden Week, I thought maybe Monday it didn't drop. And then all of a sudden, Wednesday it dropped. I was thinking maybe it'll be more towards the end of the week.
Yeah, I think a lot of what's happening this time around is it's different on the type of energies, and that's something that's really interesting. When we looked at LTDA 1 and we looked at LTDA 2, it's very heavy on the best side. So I think this one is quite interesting because we're looking at a broader spectrum of the energy sector.
Yeah, it's
That's
definitely more
super fun
more diverse.
for sure.
So let's get right into it.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
So welcome to the special episode of the Japan Energy Podcast. Today we don't have any guests. It'll just be myself and Peter here.
There you go.
We want to just go through the LTDA results for round 3 really quickly, especially since it's quite diversified. So it'll be very, very interesting.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, and I also want to emphasize that because I think when we're talking about the LTDAs, maybe some of the people at home, maybe they don't know too much about it. Some of them they do. And you do also have a lot of the European players or American players or Australian, wherever, and they want to come into the Japan market. So just as a super quick introduction to the LTDA market here. But this time around, sure, BESS is still an important part of that, but the full picture is more interesting. It's more complicated this time around because we're looking at, let's say, like nuclear, we're looking at hydrogen, we're looking at ammonia co-firing, we're looking at pumped hydro, LNG, which is, a little bit of a different sector than what we normally talk about. But this is essentially a roadmap for how Japan sees its grid evolving over the time. So I think that's going to be a really cool discussion.
I think everybody was very excited about BESS. And so this was where we saw the age of the BESS boom here right now going on in Japan. But definitely in round 1, there was a lot of LNG projects awarded. And this time around, it's a lot more diversified. So we'll do a quick overview of the LTDA structure for any new listeners. Then we'll go sector by sector through the results. And we'll close with our read on the big themes. What's attractive, what's a concern, and what we think the market is telling us.
There we go. There you go. Perfect. So let's jump into the second segment, which is more on the LTDA and what it actually is. So for the new listeners, this is just a super quick LTDA primer. It's the long-term decarbonization auction. It was launched in 2023, and the premise is very simple. Japan, they need large-scale decarbonized power sources, and then private developers won't build them without revenue certainty over a long horizon, or at least this is a way to basically put more people into that front. So the government, they offer 20 years fixed capacity payments through Octo. You bid a price, you win, and then with that price, you have that for 20 years, and you keep that as long as you deliver and you operate. So that helps cover your capex and fixed opex. So whatever you earn into the actual power markets, on top of that, is yours. There is one caveat, and that is that you have to return 90% of the profit above the this threshold. So it's deliberately a windfall mechanism. It's a cost recovery mechanism, I guess you could call that.
Total awarded, it's around 7.3 gigawatts.
Hmm.
And this makes it larger than LTDA 2, which was roughly around 6.3 gigawatts, but smaller than the first round, where at that time we saw it was around 9.8 gigawatts. The biggest difference was in the composition. So LTDA 1 was heavily driven by LNG.
Hmm.
LTDA 2 was dominated by nuclear safety investments and, of course, BESS. While LTDA 3, the one that just arrived, it's a lot more diverse. So there's hydrogen, non-lithium batteries, pumped hydro, nuclear, ammonia co-firing, and LNG.
There we go. There we go. And one thing that's worth flagging is actually also the structure of the auction itself. It's a pay as bid system, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier, or I mentioned a little bit earlier. So unlike the main capacity market, which clears at a single price, every winner gets the price that they bid on. So that matters a lot for how developers they go in and they approach it. You're not trying to be the marginal bidder. You're trying to bid low enough to win while you're also covering your costs. And if you bid too low, well, you're locked in for 20 years, right? So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the LTDA 3, the 19 different projects, 19 when you combine both lithium and non-lithium. But yeah, the story that I find more interesting in this is actually the split in between this. So you have the lithium BESS here for the 10 projects, and you have the non-lithium BESS projects for 9 projects.
Hmm.
I think this is quite interesting. But why do you actually think that that they split this into two different things? Because I have my own perspective on this, which I'll share in a second.
Well, I think right now they're also looking at newer technologies like the long duration projects, and uh, we were kind of looking at the different press releases and think some of the different companies like Hexa, for example, Bison Energy, they won these non-lithium ion battery
Yeah,
projects, but not really sure exactly what the underlying technology is. So we'll be curious to find out exactly what it will be, what the chemistry or what kind of technology it will be. Um, it's just with long duration, I think lithium ion, it does have its limitations.
hmm
And this time around, there was a push for kind of higher duration type of projects.
yeah, and it also matters for another reason. So I was looking at this, and I also went into this thinking like, why would you split this into two different things? And I think it's more about like hedging your bets, really. So there's a new 30% cell origin rule, which creates a direct incentive to diversify chemistry inside of the batteries. So if you're not LFP from China, you're by definition reducing concentration risk. So two, if you're looking at the non-lithium ion technologies like sodium ion, flow batteries, they have different duration and degradation profiles
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about this in the episode last time with Hayato. But a flow battery can cycle much more aggressively than LFP without degrading the same way. And that has some revenue stack implications. And the third one I also wanted to go over is that it signals that the government is trying to basically future proof the technology mix by not just building, well, the
Lithium
cheapest
ion
thing.
technologies.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
a good point. So kind of diversifying the different kind
Yeah.
of battery technologies.
So I think, yeah, that hedging mindset is quite smart actually from the Japan sector perspective.
Hmm. So Peter, what's your read overall on best in this round? A positive signal, negative signal?
Yeah. I guess I'm positive with a few caveats. The chemistry diversification is, I think, quite encouraging. I think
Hmm.
that's really interesting.
Yep.
The reduction in the pool size is actually quite healthy, I think, as well, and it also filters out like marginal projects. I do have a little bit of a concern. I'm not a professional in this sense at all or anything like that. It's just a little bit of a personal concern, and
Right.
that's more on the developers who won round one or two
Mhm.
on like aggressive revenue assumptions. So if you won in round one or two and you also win in round three, and you're now trying to finance two projects simultaneously in a constrained grid queue, that's where I think we'll see a little bit of stress or maybe a lot of stress in the next 12 to 18 months. I don't know 100%. I haven't talked to all of the developers here. This is more just like something I'm thinking like you're now improving, like you're implementing a new technology into the Japan sector. This is something that we haven't really seen go live yet, a little bit, but not really on a massive scale at all. And now you're already winning a third round, and I think that's going to be quite difficult on a developer perspective.
Yeah, so I guess everybody will definitely be busy, from TSOs to EPCO companies to developers to financiers. But as we all know, the push for renewable energy is urgent,
Yeah,
especially as the current situation is playing out in the Middle East.
yeah,
So, yep, everyone is busier. So let's see if a lot of these projects can come to fruition.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and that's going to lead us to the next quite interesting sector here, and that's more on the hydrogen end here.
Hmm. Uh, Super interesting. If we're looking at kind of the hydrogen projects, so these are pure hydrogen projects. We have Hoku Energy that won their project. There's also CEF-H2.
Hmm.
Um, couldn't really figure out this SPV company. I tried to find out, who are the kind of investors behind this or who are the developers, but not much information that I could find. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, other publications can come up with that information. But with Hoku Energy, they are building something really interesting, building a whole low carbon ammonia supply chain, importing from overseas.
Yeah.
They have obviously now just won the projects here in Japan.
Hmm.
They have a team in Taiwan as well that they're looking at the green hydrogen space there. So very, very interesting things that they're building.
For sure, for sure. And I think when we're trying to put this into context, like this is most likely the largest hydrogen blended power generation project globally, I believe. That's
It's definitely up there. I think it was hard to kind of compare. We tried doing research, but it was different governments have different kind of subsidy
uh,
award systems, and then also the pricing as well is not specific per project, but it's definitely up there, and it's a super exciting moment for green hydrogen.
for sure, for sure. I mean, when we're looking at anything from like pure hydrogen combustion at utility scale, it's still largely demonstration phase globally. I mean, Kawasaki, they were running pilot programs. And then JERA, they ran a small pure hydrogen test at Nishinagoya.
Mm,
And then what CEF, H2, and Hoku Energy are proposing is more of a commercial scale commitment that is genuinely ahead of where the rest of the world is, at least to my knowledge.
mm.
So yeah, Terry, I'm kind of just for the sake of the discussion here as well as it is a podcast. Why hasn't this been bigger news maybe, or why haven't we talked about this more from like a global perspective? Because I know that we're both reading the news from, of course, Japan, but also outside of Japan. Um,
Well, the results just dropped, and also I think hydrogen the past couple of years, it's really received a lot of negative news. I think we've been seeing a lot of headlines from coming out from Europe.
yeah,
Europe definitely was in the forefront, especially with a lot of the oil companies that were pushing for a lot of the hydrogen
yeah,
projects. I think Germany had a couple, and there were a lot of these projects were making headlines where at first it was very promising, and then they started scaling back, and then they started announcing that they would be shutting down these hydrogen projects. And these would range between either your utility scale kind of supply chain
hmm,
or your hydrogen kind of technology in cars, right,
yeah,
in the automotive industry. So it may be that maybe it's not really making big headline news right now. But again, uh, the LTDA 3 results only just dropped. So
that's true.
it may take some time before the headlines catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last year at the World Hydrogen Leaders event run through S&P here in
Mm,
Tokyo.
yep.
That was quite interesting because we had a lot of chats on hydrogen. We also had a lot of chats on the policy end, and also on anything from a financing perspective. Right.
Mm,
This is there were clear discussions throughout all of the panel discussions, and I think it was what 3 days or so, and we had a lot of the same issues come up back to back,
yep.
which was always it's really expensive. If we want to retrofit anything into this,
Right.
it's again going to be extremely expensive. It's almost the same price as to I think it was about 50% of the price of building like new fleets for it.
Sure.
So that perspective right there, when we're thinking about retrofitting, is extremely expensive.
Yeah.
If we're looking at anything from like the policy perspective, there's not enough government funding coming in for this
Yep.
until now. Yeah. So I think the LTDA side is going to be super interesting here
Yeah.
for this what do you call this power revenue side, or like at least bringing in a new renew energy into the
Yeah.
mix, right?
And just a point of clarification as well for these two projects. So Hoku Energy, this is a greenfield project, so they're going to be developing this newly, whereas CEF H2 This is retrofitting an existing power plant in Kyushu. So
Hmm.
yeah, it'll be quite interesting to kind of see what the economics of it look like in the end. But mentioning the hydrogen conference
Hmm.
last year, one of the biggest takeaways for me was about collaboration. Hydrogen is still well, both hydrogen and ammonia technology for utility scale kind of power generation,
Hmm.
still in its very early stages, and it really requires all of the stakeholders to come in and work together.
Yeah,
And there were even kind of discussions mentioning that it may not be a straightforward kind of counterparty relationship between the power generator and the off taker. It may be that both sides have to come together and might have to invest together in these projects. And of course, the LTDA projects will LTDA subsidies will definitely help
mm,
because the economics are just so expensive. But if we can curb and go through these obstacles and challenges,
hmm,
it is another form of technology diversification that a lot of nations really require and need.
for sure, for sure. And I mean, on top of the needs, I mean, if we're looking at anything from like banks being comfortable on also engaging into this, we have MUFG, 𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗲, SMBC. They're all developing hydrogen frameworks, but
Mm,
the playbook doesn't fully exist yet. So I think this is going to really put pressure on the entirety of the energy sector in this regard. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm super excited to see this. Cool. So just when we're talking about hydrogen, I just want to quickly put a little bit of a wrap on this.
Mm,
Um, I think we're both optimistic on the intent of hydrogen. It's realistic in the sense that you have the LTDA contracts that give them 4 years to start supply, so by 2030, and then you also have more government, what do you call that, subsidy into financing this. So I
mhm.
think with that, we might be more bullish on the hydrogen front now compared to, let's say, like even a year ago when we were at the conference. I was a little bit skeptic, but actually with this, I'm a lot more tuned towards thinking that this is going to be a really interesting perspective in the energy sector.
Absolutely. I think there has been several projects in Europe, and again, as I mentioned, they made big headlines and
Hmm.
maybe they weren't as successful. But Japan is Japan, and Japan is unique.
Hmm.
Japan is an island nation. It's not the grid is isolated
Mm.
compared to Europe, and
Yeah,
Japan needs other types of
yeah,
solutions for energy
for
security and
sure.
energy generation. So hydrogen may be a feasible option, not for every nation, but it really depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I also think when we're looking at anything from the energy mix in Japan, I think it's we're definitely looking for more ways
Diversify.
to diversify. Yeah, because right now we don't really have too much. I'd say the wind sector has been quite slow, so we definitely need
The
some
wind sector definitely has its headwinds there.
yeah.
So
That's for another conversation. Let's not
hard to think
let's
who
not
who
move
to
into
who
this.
to invite for that discussion.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So the rest of the mix is going to be focusing on nuclear, ammonia, pumped hydro, and LNG, which is a
Mm,
little bit of a separate category. But I just want to move quickly through these or through the other sectors. So nuclear first, because it's kind of the elephant in the room. We have two plants in LTDA 3. We have OMA, we have Tomari Unit 1, and combined they're nearly 2 gigawatts. And that's more than the entire BESS allocation. So yeah, Terry, do you want to run us through this a little bit?
And this is where I think the LTDA is doing something quite deliberate that doesn't always get said out
Mhm.
loud. The original framing was decarbonization auction, but nuclear safety upgrades are not new decarbonization capacity. These plans already exist. What the LTDA is doing is providing fundraising or funding for the safety investments required to restart under post Fukushima regulatory requirements. And that's a legitimate policy goal. Japan needs baseload
Mhm.
power. Nuclear is low carbon baseload. It's very, very important for this, especially with all of the big AI boom and demand
Yeah,
that we want to use for
yeah.
electricity.
And we can also include the entire war from anything from like Russia, Ukraine, and we can also talk about the Strait of Hormuz into this. It really goes to show how important baseload really is to have right now.
Or energy security
Yeah, that's
for that
a better
matter.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is categorically different from
Mhm.
building new solar or new BESS.
Let's move over to ammonia co-firing. We have two plans for round three. We have Hokkaido EPCO Hokkaido EP.
Well, it's quite interesting. I think I believe Kobe Steel they have about six thermal power plants,
Yeah.
and they're now retrofitting one with ammonia co-firing. Ammonia co-firing basically it means you're blending ammonia into an existing coal or gas
Yeah.
plant, say 20% ammonia, 80% fossil.
Hmm.
You reduce emissions by roughly that portion.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is most of the ammonia being discussed. These supply chains are not exactly green.
Mm.
It's not stipulated that they have to be green ammonia. It's blue, it's gray, produced from natural gas or without carbon capture. We obviously want to decarbonize as much as possible, but there's also the reality of it. And this is where there's a lot of debate about, okay, transition fuels, the transition
Yeah.
period. And this would be a clear example of that. So LTDA giving long-term revenues, certainly to ammonia, this would help with the energy crisis or
Yeah.
energy security that we dearly need. Um, this signals that it may delay full decommissioning of fossil
Hmm.
capacity. But, you know, with the war that is going on, coal is also rising. It's just the whole energy security risk is that much stronger and more important. So yeah, I think this is quite important to have these kind of ammonia projects in the mix as well.
Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in episode 4. We're going over the Strait of Hormuz as well, and we talked about just anything from an energy security perspective, and we
Yeah.
talked about the differences in Europe, outfacing more on the coal side, and then in Japan why we would still keep that. A little bit of a teaser for the people who haven't watched that episode. You can go and check that out. But yeah, last on this, or technically there's two more. But the pumped hydro side, we have 453 megawatts across two projects. It's Kyogoku new build and Shiobara for the replacement here. Do you maybe want to run me through your views on this?
So pump hydro genuinely important. It is the most proven long duration storage technology that we have. It's technically very straightforward, uh, simple technology that we understand. It provides multi-hour to multi-day storage that lithium-ion battery technology just can't economically provide right now.
Mm.
And Japan has excellent geography for this. It's mountainous. You'll be able to kind of situate the hydro pump up and then pump it up, pump it down. Um, the Kyogoku new build in Hokkaido is particularly interesting, given Hokkaido's offshore wind ambitions. You need
Mm.
storage to absorb
Yeah.
all of this renewable energy power, and pump hydro pairs very well with that. I think in Europe, there's the big example where Denmark is producing all of the wind power, and then Norway is
Yep.
storing all of that energy.
Yeah.
I think if we look into Southeast Asia, it's kind of similar as well. Laos is acting like a big
Oh, really?
kind of battery storage because of their hydropower dam,
Okay.
and
Wow.
then where it can store energy for their neighboring countries. So uh, the challenge is timeline for these projects. But yeah, if it does come to fruition, it will be great.
Yeah, I think for pumped hydro, this is a little bit more of a decade long build. It's not any quick win, but definitely important to have on the. We've got LNG for the last part here. So we've got 4 plants. It's about 3 gigawatts. It's a separate category, of course, but it is considered under like future decarbonization framing. So this is part of the LTDA that generates the most legitimate criticism, I'd say. You cannot build net zero on LNG infrastructure, but the government is essentially saying that these plants will be converted to hydrogen or ammonia eventually, but that eventually is not really defined. And the 20-year contract means that these plants are operating until the 2040s, regardless of what happens to Japan's decarbonization trajectory. I understand the grid stability argument. I think it's real tension that the policy community in Japan needs to address. But if I'm just taking a step back from the very renewable focused mindset, we need more LNG infrastructure to create energy security. I completely understand that this is the key role, and I don't want to always be the one to push out only renewables
Right,
because
or
that's
only
not going to
green. Yeah.
be that's what we do for work. But let's be honest, when we're looking at energy security, we can't only
Yes.
be green, and I
Yeah.
think that's a distinction that a lot of people mistake, especially when they're not fully in the energy sector. And you have a lot of people, especially in the European mindset, maybe at least like, I mean, I'm from Denmark, so you have a lot there talking more about like how do we fully make everything renewable, but it's also a completely different um, infrastructure build. It's not an island, it's a peninsula, and everything's easier connected. That's simply not what we have here. Any top thoughts on this? Or
No, I absolutely agree. I think energy security with our whole power demand is just so important. Yet at the same time, we also need to diversify our energy sources and also still look at decarbonization projects. That is still trying to limit global warming, and decarbonize is still very, very important. So definitely don't lose sight of the objective and goals,
yeah,
but we need to also be realistic about it.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's very, very well put.
Mhm.
All right.
So that's our quick analysis after the LTDA 3 results dropped. We shared our quick thoughts here. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, there will be more publications and more information that would come up on the different projects as well.
Sure.
This has been the Japan Energy Podcast. So thank you very much for your time, Peter.
Of course, yeah. It's rare that it's just you and me, and it's weird me being on this side of the table. But yeah, it's been really nice, and this is something I really wanted to touch upon, and also as soon as possible because the LTDA just dropped a few days ago, right?
Yes.
All right.
So remember, be sure to subscribe on all the podcast platforms. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcast, or you want to watch our video, it's on our YouTube channel as well. And also remember to subscribe our LinkedIn page, Titan Consulting and Titan Green Tech.
There you go. And one more thing that we never really talk about is that if anyone has any wants to discuss the energy transition or any questions on Japan in particular or anything like that, we're always happy to meet for a cup of coffee and go over this. We're quite passionate about this, as you can probably tell. So yeah, reach out at any time and we're happy to find time.
That's right. We're based in Tokyo. I live out in Chiba, but I come into Tokyo regularly.
Yeah, I'm split in the middle here in Tokyo. All right, that's it.
See you guys in the next episode.